And what we'd like to do, Paul Goldman is here. Let's put him right in between us, Aaron. This is Paul Goldman. He is a political analyst and also a courtroom observer, and you've been here. You actually thought, you and I had discussions, you thought that they were going to walk on this. How shocked are you?
I thought they had a chance. I thought they had some reasonable doubt. As the case developed, it seemed to me that the defense's strategy started to fall apart. First, blaming the wife and letting Johnny Williams sort of go. That didn't make a lot of sense. The jury obviously saw through that. Basically, if you look upon it, this is what I would say, Andy. The defense strategy seemed to be more to prove that Bob McDonnell was innocent than creating reasonable doubt. The way you win these cases is reasonable doubt. That's the defendant's best hope.
Now, let me ask you this. You and I were sitting in there. We heard David Harbach's closing. It was devastating.
Oh, yeah.
It was devastating, and you and I talked about that. What role do you think that played with these 12 jurors when they had all those dots neatly connected in a very powerful way?
There was this old TV show called Have Gun Will Travel about you'd hire a hired gun and he'd take care of your problems. Well, that's what you had in there. He's a closer. He's done this around this country, actually. Brilliant closing argument. The prosecution had what you'd call a Yogi Berra theory. Some things are too coincidental to be a coincidence. He put all those coincidences together. And they shifted the burden to the defense. Hey, if you don't have a better argument than we got, you're going to go down. They never really had an argument. They had a lot of this isn't true, that isn't true, but you needed sort of if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit. Something simple to explain all the evidence. Yeah. They didn't have it.
And I just remember during David Harbach's closing, the stone face expression, the ashen face of Bob McDonnell as he had to sit there and listen to all of that, and it was just devastating. And we look at that in hindsight, and that was the denouement.
Well, you know something? I happened to get you a glimpse of the former governor when after that in the hallway. And my reaction was, I think that's the first time he's ever actually heard all this put together. And I always had this sense that both he and his defense attorneys, they just were off key, if you noticed. The judge even said it over the arguments on the instructions where he said, look, we've been over this a number of times. They have been arguing their theory of the elements of the crime since February. The judge had said, no, that's not the law. I guess they're getting to get their chance on appeal now, but I think their chances are slim.
Well, I finally caught up with Henry Asbill, and he is the attorney for Bob McDonnell. And as he told me, we have him on tape, he was saying that he was just devastated and surprised. He said that Governor Bob McDonnell, he's very disappointed and surprised, as am I. He in his heart knows he didn't do anything, and so do I. And that's what he said, that they plan to appeal the sentencing is January 6th, and then they will plan to appeal after that, without having to deal with the bank issues, just with the corruption issues. But as we know, Paul Goldman, those are the devastating things.
That was what this case was all about. The bank was just thrown in to sort of maybe give him a chance to negotiate a plea.
Yeah, and with something else that we want to point out as well, and you and I have talked about that as well, and Aaron, is that, look, back when he was governor, he was given the opportunity to plead guilty to one of these bank fraud charges, and your wife would walk. There would be none of this. There would be no trial. You plead guilty. Of course, he'd have to resign as governor of Virginia, yes, and that's why he didn't do it.
Absolutely.
Hindsight.
It's certainly going to be something he's going to think about for the rest of his life. I was looking up some of the statistics. There's a good chance he's going to have to do 3 to 5 years in prison. And we're talking about, that's hard time. It's devastating. The question you'd have to ask yourself is, back when they made that offer, was last year, what was he thinking? He had different lawyers. The lawyers he had, then after he refused to take the plea, it looks like they left. That's when his current lawyers came on. He rolled the dice. It was the biggest gamble of his life.
Is it? I don't want to say arrogance, because I know Bob McDonnell, and I don't use that word arrogance as a descriptive of him, but it certainly is perhaps hubris that he would think that he would be able to get off of these pending charges that could creep up in the future.
I talked to a friend of mine that does a lot of these cases, not in this state, and I asked him, and I said, what's your experience tell you? He said, well, Paul, this is what I've learned. a politician that takes the stand and tries to run for office, I'm not wrong, blaming everybody else, always loses. The politician that takes the stand and says, yeah, I'm everything but a criminal, throws himself on the mercy of his constituents, generally will get off. People want to see contrition, and we've discussed it. I've been writing about it. He was not a contrite defendant.
And during the testimony, and Aaron, you heard this, and you heard this a lot too, that he couldn't answer a lot of the questions.
Certainly, and I think that we also talked a lot about the strategy with Maureen McDonnell. Some people were saying it felt like the defense teams were throwing her under the bus. Certainly, we heard a lot of unflattering testimony about her. What do you think about that strategy? Did the jury find that offensive?
What did you say when you first saw me? Andy, very risky.
I think the jury threw Bob McDonnell under the bus, but with his wife also, it made no sense. It wasn't a good strategy. I understood it legally. I think I said at the time we were talking about it, it's the kind of thing that might win you a moot court argument in law school, because it's kind of, wow, the worse she looks, the better we're going to do. Maybe an A student's argument, but in real life, a husband throwing the mother of his kids, the jury, particularly the women on the jury, must have just been, who is this man? All possible sympathy for him. When you have a circumstantial case and it's close, you want the jury to give you the benefit of the doubt. But they're not going to do that if they don't like you. And I think all the likability that he had, which helped him win a landslide as governor, was gone by the time he got on the stand.
Paul Goldman, a political commentator and court observer, thank you very much.
Take care.
For very what he said. I mean, that's what he was talking about. Once again, January 6th, they will be sentenced. As Paul Goldman said, he's kind of been crunching the numbers. According to him, somewhere between 3 to 5 years. Not sure about Maureen, perhaps the same. And once again, when he was leaving, he says, I put my faith in God. As he was getting into the car, he thanked the media for the way that the media has been handling. He has come down this walk every single day. And when he left this courthouse for the final time, he left with a car that just pulled up here and just devastated.